Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Birth the Middle Way. My name is Emma Cardinal, and I'm here with my beautiful sister, co host, friend, Sammy Love. And today we're here to talk about Charlie Kirk, specifically the human reactions and the polarity revolving the assassination of Charlie Kirk and how that mirrors the conversation in the birth world and the polarity in the birth world. I'm hoping that through this discussion today that we're able to come to a place of not understanding or even agreement. And we're not here to convince anyone of our perspectives, but really opening up the dialogue, coming from a place of curiosity and choosing compassion and humanity in this dynamic space of conversation and going back and forth with our thoughts and ideas and our feelings, knowing that every feeling is welcome, that every thought, when we really pare it back, they all make sense. They're all telling us something. Every reaction that we have to any scenario, it does make sense. It really makes sense when we look at it from a psychological lens. Yeah. And so here we are.
And I guess in the spirit of Birth the Middle Way, the
Mhm.
to bring in right off the bat the nuance, right? And specifically the nuance of why every individual responds the way that they do to anything, and specifically to weave in this topic, why each person had the response to this really big thing, this big catalyst, the way that they did, right? What the immediate response was. And I really want to invite everyone listening to tune into your own response, right? Did you find out momentarily? Was it days later? Were you connected to this person? Did you know this about this person beforehand? Did you have to go and look into it? When you looked into it, what was your response? What were the key things? Were you looking at, oh my God, he's a father and he's a partner? Were you looking at, oh my God, he said that, I saw that one clip where he said things about Black people and DEI, and I saw him supporting gun violence, and oh, why, or was it, why do we care about this white man when there's 680,000 people who have died in Palestine? What was the response? What was the first thought that came up for you? Because I've seen all of those things and many more than what I just named online. Every single person responding in different ways. And I feel like the biggest invitation is not only to question why, but to also sit with the division. Oh my God. How these things, these really big things that matter, that are happening in our world, that are really big moral dilemmas, and we can bring the war in the Middle East, which, i.e., the genocide in the Middle East, into the picture, into the conversation, right? Like, and we can bring what's happening in the Congo into the conversation. And we can bring this Ukrainian woman who was stabbed on a train into the conversation. We can bring all of the school shootings that have happened across the United States this year, in the past 10 years, into the conversation, right? We can bring Trump into the conversation. There's so many massive moral debates and dilemmas that are happening right now. And there's a lot of divide happening in the wake of all of those things that I just named. In my perception, personally, what I perceive is really big polarities of, you believe this is right, this is wrong. And if you don't believe what I believe, I'm not going to try to have a conversation with you. I'm going to unfollow you and not talk to you and deem you as a bad person inside of my mind and push it away. And I'm not saying that I'm above that. I'm not saying that I haven't unfollowed people that I see posting things on social media that I'm like, what? And hit the unfollow button, even though I have a prayer to really be in discourse and dialogue, And so there's also the nuance of we don't have to be in conversation with every single person. It's not possible. But I guess my question is, are we in conversation with people that are outside of our echo chambers or echo chambers, you know? And that, like, it doesn't have to be all of them, but like, are you willing to interface with one or two? Or are you only willing to dialogue with people that agree with you?
And I think that nuance that you mentioned that I want to speak into just a little bit more, because you said we can bring in all of these other threads to the conversation. I think a really important piece that I just want to speak to before we get into anything is that it's not just from, again, my lens, my perception, it's not just about one man, one assassination, one death. When we look at the news, we look on social media, we look to everything that's going on in the world, everything that has gone on. This is not a singular instance that we are grieving, that we are being triggered by, that we have a reaction to. There's a complexity here. There's a layering effect of there's this going on, there's school shootings, there's this person dying, and then there's our own personal grief. There's the stuff that's happening just in our lives that all of this is touching, whether it's presently, currently happening, or things that have happened in the past. And that I just feel needs to be mentioned is it's not just one thing. Even when my son passed away, somebody had mentioned to my partner, hey, this is going to be touching on so many things that you've already been through. And you're going to be grieving not just what is happening now, it's going to be pulling on threads of things from your childhood. It's going to be pulling on threads from things connected to what you know and what you don't know. So, this layering effect of there's a lot happening on the planet right now. There's been a lot happening for as long as we can remember, and our nervous systems are not designed to hold all of it. And so it can be very, very overwhelming. Our nervous
Extremely
systems,
dysregulating.
exactly. And so this is also a big prayer for this conversation is to have you guys leave where where you are walking away with tools, with resources that you can carry with you. So you can, yes, be aware of what is going on globally, what is going on in the world. So we can have these difficult conversations, which could be triggering, and we can titrate in those, yeah, very emotional, activating states. And we can have things, tools, practices that can help resource us so we can stay strong, so our nervous systems can feel held as we navigate the complexities and nuances and difficulties of the global climate, whether it's genocide or war or assassinations or murder or personal experiences with death.
And, you know, as you say that, and this is honestly a big contemplation I've been in, the nuance in all of that is, are we even meant to be discussing the content of the entire world? Is that even what we're designed to do? Should we be taking it on, or should we be turning our social media off at this point? And there is nuance there, right? Because what a privilege it is to be able to just turn off the horrors of the world when other human beings are out there living it. And it's a really valid nuance. But again, then the next nuance is, but who and what does it serve for me to be completely dysregulated and in grief and in anger and not able to respond to my two little babies in a good way because it's all just too much?
And recognizing that there will be things that we cannot turn off, that we cannot put down. You know, I've had people tell me, and they're like, hey, I don't have capacity to be in your presence right now because it's really heavy. And
Right.
I, you know, the loss of a child is really heavy. And I'm like, I don't have the privilege of putting this down. This is something that is with me all the time, and it is exhausting, you know, and there are things in my life that I can turn off my phone and not look at social media and not watch the news, not read a newspaper, but I can't turn off my own lived experiences. And so honoring,
Exactly.
and I'm using that as an example to give permission to everyone listening, like, hey, there are things that you cannot turn off.
Right.
And we need to also tend to those things, to those
Right.
places, right?
Right. Right. And, to speak into that, it's like the truth in that is that there isn't going to be a way to avoid the human experience.
Hmm.
And just because, maybe we aren't the people that are experiencing directly the horrors of Gaza, or we weren't Charlie Kirk and we didn't get assassinated in cold blood in front of a crowd of people, or, you know, that doesn't mean that there isn't hardship and suffering. And, there's a teaching that says that the human psychology is only designed to interact. I just had this on my social media yesterday, but it's actually something I've been contemplating and sitting with and talking with a lot of people about. I've brought this concept up multiple times over the last couple months. We're only designed to be working with the psychological content of a group of about the size of 150 people. Nothing more. I grew up in a town of like 300 people, and it's the smallest town of anybody that I know other than the people that grew up there with me. Like we had a retreat guest in the introduction of this retreat, and he goes, yeah, I grew up in a really small town. It's about 15,000 people. I was like, okay, I grew up in a really, really, really small town, you know? But like, that's such an anomaly in today's day and age. Like, we have cities like New York, right? I actually, ironically, synchronistically, another retreat guest in this retreat is from New York and was speaking into that and just like the buzz and like the go and and so it's
Mm.
like the agitation that is just actually normalized in the human nervous system when we are incessantly and constantly and consistently taking on more energy, more content, more than what we actually have capacity for. And there's no heroic complex, there's no superiority complex that is going to change that reality in our nervous system, right? Oh, but like, I'm not going to look away. Yeah, I refuse to look away from the horrors, like that identity kind of egoic superiority complex that I do see some people in. And then shaming other people of like, well, you're just looking away, like that's just an expression of your privilege, and shaming people for that. It's like, but just because you're consenting to exposing yourself to all that doesn't mean that you're not completely dysregulated, and that is a positive thing for you, your family, your community, or the entirety of humanity.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, but I've been sitting with it a lot, and yeah, I guess my intention today is just to be in conversation and to speak, and I am contemplating retracting my energy and seeing how I can do that and still express my truth and be in conversation for those who care to listen, right? Like,
Mm.
I don't expect that everybody listen to me, or that everybody agree with me, or that everybody even give a shit what I have to say or what I think, right? Come and listen if you feel called. And if you want to reach out and be in deeper dialogue, beautiful, let's connect. And if not, like, that's perfect too. But I think what a lesson that I personally received from Charlie Kirk and from his assassination and from this entire unfolding is that shaming others into silence is not the way. And in the wake of some of these atrocities in the world, I have felt shamed in silence, right? Like, specifically with the conflict in the Middle East. Like, my lived reality is I have a lot of friends who are Israeli that were going through big processes in the wake of October 7th. And I was listening to them and listening to their grief and listening to their lived experiences with a lot of questions. I have done so much research and followed people on both sides for 2 years. So many conversations with ChatGPT, like, what is the truth here? What are the nuances? What I can say for sure is that what I see happening in Palestine, I despise it. I completely disagree. I completely disagree that should be happening, or that there's a pathway of justifying that. Now that's what I believe. I wasn't so clear on that on October 7th, 2 years ago. And that's my lived reality. But if I would have spoke out in question of that, I would have been shamed and unfollowed and, oh, you are so bad and you're just white and Israeli's white and it's just your white privilege and you just identify with them more. And I know all of the rhetoric, right? I can literally, like, at this point predict I'm going to put something out online and this is going to be the response from specific people too, you know? And so then that comes back to the question at the beginning of the episode of, like, why do certain people respond in certain ways
Right.
to certain
Well, and this
things?
is, and it's interesting because we can look at it from one lens and say, well, if you think a certain way, then you're bad, then you're evil. If you believe a certain thing, then you're not a good person.
Exactly.
And in terms of what's happening in Gaza, right? I have kind of been standing, I don't know too much about it. I've tried to learn about the history of what's gone on and the politics of what's happening there, and I still don't really understand it. And quite frankly, I don't know if anyone actually does.
The
For
politics
me,
for sure not, right?
yeah,
For
and for
sure.
me, and even the history of it, and like when
Oh, for
did
sure.
this
I
place
just
actually
had a
come into,
conversation.
But like for me, bottom line is I'm not, I don't agree with war. I don't.
Right.
I do not agree with war. I can't say that I side with one group or another group, or I'm pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. I'm not either. I am pro-peace. That is where I stand. And I've said that to some people, and I've received backlash.
You've been called a white supremacist for saying that,
And I'm
I'm
like,
sure. Or somebody's thought it at
how
least.
is that? Yeah. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't say anything. I just said that I'm pro peace and that I don't know enough. And then it's, oh, you're too privileged to not do research. And I'm like, I have a dead son. Like I'm tapped. My nervous system's tapped. Like what am I supposed to do here? Like I don't know.
Totally.
And so this
Totally.
is where I'm not saying that I'm correct. I don't think I can stand by me saying I am always correct. I'm always right here. But I'm here for conversation. And if you think
Right.
I'm wrong, like let's sit down and discuss this. Let's have this dialogue. Let's engage in curiosity because that from where I sit currently is why war exists in the first place because we are unwilling to sit with people who disagree with us and try to find a solution to to these discrepancies of belief.
Exactly. And that's, I don't know if I made that point. I'm not remembering if I did, but that is what I received from Charlie Kirk is
Mhm.
to be in dialogue. Like he was name another person on this planet right now. I would love for you to name. I would love to know that there's another person out there that is going on to specifically college campuses with young minds, right? Like developing minds that are really like, in their identity complexes and trying to form who they are and what this world is and what their place is in it. I really feel like that is a big piece of the psychological process in our 20s. We come out of our teens and kind of this rebellious, like breaking free from our parents. And yes, there's some identity formation in that time. But really in 20s to 30s, it is that, we're really sitting with like, who am I? What's my purpose? What's my path? What do I believe? We're interfacing with all of the world now suddenly as we emerge from our childhood bubble and trying to create a concrete sense, right? And so he was going into these university settings and he was putting a microphone in people's hands, and to just paint him as like, oh, he's such a hero and he's so perfect. He did it perfect all the time. He didn't do it perfect all the time. I've watched him say, like, you are not living in reality to people. Okay. But I also see what I see more of happening in the wake of this is people taking and grasping onto these clickbaity videos and saying he's a bad person because he said this, right? The gun violence thing. Oh, he said that we should be willing to have a certain amount of people die because of blah, blah, blah. Go and watch that whole clip. What he was advocating for was for there to be security checkpoints in
Security, yeah.
schools because we protect. How do we stop guns from going into banks? We put security checkpoints. How do we stop for people from shooting up sports events? We put security checkpoints. And he was saying, why are we not protecting our most precious things in this world? Right? And so if you listen to the long-winded story, and he also says, I advocate for guns, and I have such an unknown opinion on guns. I'm
Hmm.
Canadian. You're Canadian. It's not really a thing in our country. Like, I do question it. You know, when I went down to study in North Dakota, I had friends with AK-47s in their bed night
Hmm.
table. And that was deeply confronting and confusing for me. Like, what are you expecting? Like,
Yeah.
why is that in your nightstand? Like, what? And, you know, what he's seen and what he was actively naming was the tyranny in the world, in governments. And what he was advocating for was for civilians to be able to fight their government. And he spoke that specifically, right? And so for me, I'm like, okay, yeah, when I look at the political atmosphere of the United States, if I was American living there, I can actually probably see how I might feel safer knowing that there was a gun in my house somewhere. I grew up with guns in my house. My dad's a hunter. They're all licensed rifles that are locked away in a safe in a locked room. But like, even that, like in the wake of this world, it brings me a sense of peace to know my parents have that and they're not even in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much nuance.
Yeah.
And I
So I
could
want
unpack
to,
all of the rhetoric of Charlie because I've really gone in and tried to be like, was he a shit person? Like, was I off on like
okay.
listening to
This
him
is
sometimes?
this is a thread that I would love to get into with you, that I would love to unpack and open up and explore here, because for me, like one of the things that he spoke was um, when the dialogue stops, violence happens. And that's a paraphrase, but he has said that many times over in various articulations. And so I agree. Like one of the things that I know him to be is somebody that wants to have dialogue, that if he knows that you disagree, here's the microphone. What do you think? Ask a question. I'll ask you a question. Let's go back and forth. The what I've seen, I guess, projected onto him is this idea of he is spewing hate speech. So
Right.
it's not just him sharing an opinion, it's him sharing an opinion that is causing violence to others. To be clear or honest or transparent with my understanding, I disagree for the most part that he was spewing hate speech. My understanding, and this is where I want to kind of explore, how do we define hate speech? How do we understand what that is? Because based on my understanding right now, that is a subjective statement. Like that is a subjective um, thing. Like, can we look at something and actually qualify and objectively say this is hate speech? And this is a big thing to say. I know I'm white, clearly. Like, I know it's a big thing for like a white woman to
I'm so
say.
white, I'm blonde.
Yeah,
Blonde
like
hair,
I
blue eyes,
know,
I'm the most white.
I know, like I know this is like, woo, like whoa, controversial here saying this, but like I am genuinely curious because when I listened to the things that he was saying, he would be asking more questions in terms of like DEI or whatever it would be, right? Like he's asking questions, he's inquiring, he's speaking about things in terms of policy, not in terms of people. And so I'm just curious to hear your perspective in this because how do we like is he a good person? Is he not a good person? I mean, like that's again another subjective thing. Like it's
Right.
and then if
Right.
you're a bad person, do you deserve to get shot? Because he wasn't advocate like he wasn't a politician as far as I know. He wasn't like somebody that was creating policies that were killing people. Like he was having
He was in
conversations.
politics. He
He
was
was
in
in politics,
politics
but
for
he was
sure.
having conversations, but he wasn't the prime minister, whoever, president or whatever the US people have
Vice
got going
president.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious to have a conversation a bit more about hate speech because that's what I keep seeing things come back to is it's not free speech that he's advocating for, it's hate speech that he was spewing, which is why he's a bad person.
Well, I think first I want to say, just to the listeners, that Emma and I actually haven't dialogued on this topic at all yet.
We
So
haven't
you are.
we
So
haven't at
you're.
all.
Yeah, so you're hearing it first live. We talked for 45 minutes before we hit record.
We
We
did,
didn't talk
but
about this
not about
topic
this.
at all. Not at all. We're like, okay, should we hit record and talk about Charlie Kirk? Let's do it. Come on.
Sure, here we go. Like no preparation. We didn't know where we were going.
So we're
So
very in the wrong.
you're in for the ride.
Yeah. Secondly, I mean, I guess the way that I want to respond to that question is from personally, and the interesting thing from like my lived experience is that the okay, let me I'm just going to paint the whole picture. I'm going to be vulnerable and open here. The reason that I was aware of Charlie Kirk is because there is a topic that he speaks on quite frequently that I agree with. Dun, dun, dun. I do not think that men can be women. I, in many ways, deploy trans ideology and gender ideology, and I perceive it to be deeply harmful for many. And I've spoke out briefly on that on my Instagram. If you scroll back, you'll see a post that says "Woman is not a feeling." And there's another post, it's a picture, and there's a group of women that I had taken a photo of, and they were all naked, and there's a whole write-up on the bottom of that around womanhood. And my belief is that woman and man are something that is deeply sacred, that they are biological in nature, but not only biological in nature. And that, there are many things that go into the sacredness of that, like the lineage and the tradition and the rites of passage. And, in the wake of that, when I spoke out, from my perception of love, I love humanity so much. I love women so much that I need to speak up about this topic. And that doesn't mean that I hate people who are experiencing gender dysphoria. That does not mean that I hate any individual. And that does not mean that I want to disclude them from humanity or society. But it does mean that I do not believe that they get to just claim that they are a woman if they're born a man, and vice versa. And that definitely for me does not mean that they're in women's prisons or shelters or bathrooms or changing rooms or sports. It's a no. And that's not to disclude and be hateful. That's to protect what already is and has been and invite space for something new if something new needs to become. And from that, we can actually honor that deeply unique human experience and be deeply curious about the nuances of that experience and really show up for that experience in the same way that women need other women to hold their lived experience as sacred and as, I don't know, it needs to be protected in my perception. And my perception of myself is that I am a good woman with good intentions, that everything that I do is to help people. I'm a therapist. I own a healing retreat center. I try so deeply to walk in a good way, to be someone rooted in love and in goodness and to do good things for humanity. And I wouldn't perceive myself as saying those things as being hateful. But many other people did. Many other people called me a TERF, a bigot, hateful, unfollowed me. People were sharing my stories of like, everybody go and unfollow and flood this person's inbox. This is a hateful TERF, But the truth of that experience for me was that I had a few people in my inbox that were challenging what I said. I had an influx of women thanking me for my bravery to be able to share that they'd been contemplating it, that they'd been feeling the harm of it and terrified to say a single word about it. And so that to me highlights the nuance of everything that Charlie Kirk is and was and said. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, there's still not a wrong or right. Like the people that see me as hateful, right? Because I don't believe men can be women, they're entitled to that perception. Like, I am the only one that can know my truth and continue to walk my path with the utmost heart and intention and love and God and spirit that I can, right? And no matter what I do or what I say, there's going to be people that perceive me as wrong, as hateful. If I were to say I'm pro-Israel, there's going to be a whole group of people, oh my God, you're wrong, you're hateful. If I was to blatantly say I am pro-Palestine, oh my God, you're wrong, you're hateful. It's going to exist. And it's an unfortunate thing in ways, right? Because in the wake of perceiving someone as innately hateful because you don't agree with one thing that they say or a few things that they say, you cut the space for dialogue and discourse, right? Like, and I've been up and down all sides of the gender ideology rhetoric. Like, please, if somebody out there thinks that they have a point that I haven't heard, bring it to me. But I think that I have heard it all. And still, as a mental health professional, I will say that there is never a time that you orient towards affirmative care. You sit rooted in the depths of curiosity always. You ask questions. I don't know what these therapists and teachers' training was, but it was deeply different than mine. If all of a sudden we just affirm and we set down curiosity, I can't make sense of that. I cannot reconcile it, no matter what vantage point I've attempted to look at it.
Mm-hmm. And there's a powerful nuance that I just want to like bring to the light here a little bit is you shared that when you spoke and you posted on social media, you had people being very vocal, whether they're sharing in their stories or they're in the comment section and they're saying you're a TERF and you're a bigot and you're all these things. And then you had people in your DMs privately messaging you saying, thank you, I feel the same way. Oh my gosh, you're so brave, you're so courageous. And I had very similar experiences when I shared bits and pieces of my journey with Floyd, where I had people commenting, you're a murderer, you're awful, what did you expect? Like, this is all your fault, just you're a terrible person, all of these things in my comments. But then I had hundreds, if not thousands of women in my messages privately saying, I don't have, and this is the specific of what I really want to highlight is, quote, I do not have the courage to even comment, but I had the same experience. Thank you so much for speaking out. And this is for me what breaks my heart about this Charlie Kirk experience. And again, it's not so much just what happened, it's the reactions to what happened. Is that why is it a radical thing? Why did we create a society where it is a radical thing to share our unfiltered opinions and be in public viewed discourse, conversation, dialogue with people that think differently than us? Why is that a courageous thing? Why is that an act of bravery? And there's this behavior of condemnation, of crucifying someone that we think differently than, right? And there's, I think, this identity piece of like, I'm a good person because I believe X, Y, and Z. And is it possible that there can be many good people who think very differently from each other? And again, what Birth the Middle Way is rooted in, we've said this so many times, let's talk about it. Let's disagree and be in the same space. Let's
trigger me.
trigger me. Let's platform people who think differently than us so we can be in respectful discord. And I'm not saying Charlie Kirk did that flawlessly every time. Like I don't know.
None of us are going to, though.
But we're not going to. We're human beings. And can we still sit and dialogue? Like Sam and I had a conversation about right before we got on the call, and I was sharing like, yeah, I disagree about what this individual was talking about, and we're not going to get into it right now, but hopefully we'll have an episode about it. And I was like, yeah, like I thought this, or I would have loved to explore these nuances and these experiences. And I don't think we left that little mini conversation necessarily agreeing on all fronts, but like what a willingness we had to just show up and listen to one another and be like, well, what do you think? Oh, interesting. Yeah, like you have this perspective and you have this perspective. Okay, let's again remain rooted and curiosity, you know? And this is where even anybody listening to this conversation now that has kind of explored this topic of trans ideology, what like Sam already invited you into, like share your questions, your perspectives, your articles, your resources, like
Right.
link them down below in the comments. Show
Right.
up to this conversation because I would love to bring like hash this out even more with people who think again very differently, because this is a space, and now I'm rattling a little bit, but like this is a space where we talk about birth and women's wisdom and women's stories and the medicine that lives there. And so much of the time in all of these recordings we've already done, we're looking at the etymology and definitions of words. And one of the reasons that we do this for me is I think definitions are sacred. I hold definitions as sacred. I hold words and etymology and language as such a sacred thing. And this is where, if we're looking at somebody and we're saying this man deserved to die because he was a Nazi, let's look at that word. Let's look at the
Well, let's look at
definition
the
of
word.
woman, you
Right.
know, like let's look at these definitions. Let's look at the language that we're using. Can we agree upon the words that we're using here?
Right. I mean, the nuance there for me is as well as like, let's also look beyond a 4 second Instagram video. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not just talking about the trans thing from watching Instagram videos. Like,
Mhm.
in my cohort in my master's degree, I had a friend who was transitioning. I
Mhm.
had a man who was cross-dressing with, he had a beard and was coming to class in dresses and high heels. I
Damn.
was literally in that space, Naropa University, indoctrinated into the belief that men can be women. And I stood
Mhm.
by it and I believed it because I was told to. And because I had people literally in my circle of 30 people who were experiencing gender dysphoria and confusion around their identity and their gender. I worked in high crisis homeless shelters where I seen the same thing, right? I've been face to face with these humans. Like, it's not like I'm hateful to them and telling them go away and hide somewhere and don't exist. And, like, it's not that. But coming full circle and coming through the experience of gestating life and specifically giving birth to daughters and then seeing works like Abigail Shrier, who has studied high school kids and the phenomena and the influences and has come to very clear determinations that in so many ways it's pure influence, that there has been a 4,000% increase since I was in high school, right? And like the trans community just wants to say like, oh, now it's just safer. And so all the people that like always were, bullshit. I am sorry. But in many of the cases, you can tangibly feel that these people are not mentally well. And that's not to shame, that's not to blame, but that's to seek supporting them, for crying out loud. Like, I don't understand it. And that doesn't mean that there aren't some very grounded people who are experiencing this and that it feels really deeply real and true. And like, you know, people that I've listened to that feel grounded, and there's going to be judgment around this because they're more conservative leaning in their expression, but Blair White and Buck Angel, who will actually say like, I'm always going to be my biological sex, but I identify this way and I am a trans woman. Keyword trans. I'm not a woman. I'll never be fully a woman. And it's like, I can get down with that. I can listen to you. For me, I would advocate for there to be a whole different word that didn't even include the word woman. That would be my preference in all transparency, because it's a completely different lived experience. But I can listen to that. It's like, yeah, so just to be able to sit down and have the conversation would be ideal.
Mhm.
There has been people that I have sat down and have the conversation with, but to speak, just into that lived experience of like, I've come full circle. And a lot of people have projected onto me, oh, it's so nice from your vantage point and your privilege, and then you have never come face to face or you don't know. And it's like, but you're projecting onto me, assuming that you know what I've experienced in life and how deeply I've gone into this or how much it matters to me and why. Right. And so the same things go for, I mean, every human being, including Charlie Kirk. Right. Like, I love Jesus. I love God. He walked that path in a different way than I do, right? And that difference doesn't mean that I'm not going to listen to him, right? There was some things he had strong opinions on that I really didn't agree with, He literally said Palestinians aren't real at one point, When I put a
Right.
prayer
Okay.
on social media, when I put a prayer on social media for him when he died, somebody brought that to my attention. I'm like, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I deeply disagree with that. Like, and I still pray for his wife and children because he was a good father and a good husband. And he was literally murdered in cold blood, assassinated on television for everyone to see. And yeah, I think the invitation is always to look at our responses. In the wake of that, there's a woman I follow on Instagram. I think her name is Mami Onami. She's this very interesting woman, if you guys want to check her out. But she grew up in a Christian cult of some form and was like deeply traumatized by all of that. And so she went through this whole spiritual journey, and now she has like a spiritual school and she teaches spiritual content and is quite successful on that path. And she didn't know who Charlie Kirk was. And 3 days after his death, she posted this video and she said, I just found out about this assassination with this man, Charlie Kirk. I didn't know him. I didn't know his rhetoric. But when I looked into him a little bit, what I first discovered was, that he was a man of God, that he was a really devoted husband and a devoted father, and that he had 2 young children at home. And she said, I had a certain response in my body. And then she named another assassination, which I'm totally unaware of. There was another political assassination in the United States, apparently, not long ago. I have no idea. And she said, in the wake of that, I had a different physiological response. And so she said, I don't care what the collective's response to this is. I don't care. What I care about is what my response to it was and why. And this is a catalyst of deep self-reflection of why I feel differently or why I had somatically a different response to the same event. And what, like she like basically was like alluding to the first one, like she had less of a response to and was like, oh, that like makes sense. Like, I don't know. It was less of a physiological, like that, response to it as in a negative way. And where Charlie Kirk brought up more like, and that is such a valid point. I really do think that is a healthy place of contemplation, and it's somewhere that I've been, and I can name my biases. I can name that I do see him as a godly man, as a good father, as a father, period. He had a 3-year-old daughter. I have a 3-year-old daughter. When Erica Kirk spoke out and was like, I came home and my 3-year-old daughter came running up to me and she said, Mommy, 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 like, I missed you so much. And she said, yeah, I miss you too, honey.
Do you
And
know
then
the
she said,
semantic, the nuance that I heard was that her daughter, she's like, Gigi ran into my arms. And that little slip up, I was like,
oh, I didn't
oh,
hear that. Oh,
oh,
yeah.
like that
I
gutted
didn't
me.
hear
I
that.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh my God, here's the onslaught, the beginnings of like
Right.
changing
Right.
language now,
Right.
you know?
Totally.
Like,
Right.
yeah, you
Right.
know?
And then she proceeded to say, where's daddy? And, and she says, like, what do you say to a 3-year-old? Like, I can put myself in those shoes and I see that and I understand that clearly. My human bias that if I was having to explain to my 3-year-old daughter right now that she was never going to see her dad again, oh, like it brings me to my knees. And I don't feel ashamed for that bias and that connection to it.
Yeah.
Like, and nor do I feel ashamed that I can relate even to an American man that lives a more similar lifestyle to me than I can to Palestinians, for example. Does that mean that I'm trying to dehumanize Palestinians? No. Does it mean that my somatics, my body, my consciousness, just I can see myself more in Charlie Kirk than I can in a Palestinian? I don't feel ashamed for that because guess what? The world is seeking to shame specifically white people for that reality because we're white supremacists. But the Black person sees themselves mirrored more in the Black person who was shot by the white cop. And the Palestinian in America sees themselves more in the Palestinians in the Middle East than they do in the Israelis. And
Well,
the
and
Israelis see themselves more in the Israelis. And like, it's just our humanness in motion.
well, and even, you know, the subtlety, like the you seeing yourself in Charlie Kirk's wife of having to have that conversation.
Exactly.
My first inclination, because I had shared, you know, some prayers or whatever about Charlie Kirk and like, oh, my heart's feeling whatever. And then I had some people say, you know, he was pro school shootings or pro guns and so school shootings. So he the comments that I had received was basically like, you are supporting a man who supported the slaughter of children continuously in his own country, you know, and if you had lost a child to gun violence, then he would have, like, you, I'm sure you would have hated him too. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I would have, because my first feeling is I go to the mother, right? I go to, I know what it's like to lose my child. Not, I don't know what it's like for any other woman to lose their child, but I know what it's like as a mother to have a child that is dead. And that is the worst feeling in the whole world. And now Charlie Kirk's mother knows what it's like to have a dead son as well. And so when I saw him die, I was like, his
His
mother.
mom watched that. Right.
And that,
And
like,
that's your association.
that's my
Exactly.
association because that's what
Because
where
of
I
your
see myself.
humanness. And I went to his wife.
And you went to his wife,
Right.
you know? And so
Exactly.
this is where, like, we can't apologize for our humanness or our reactions, because I think any sane person would be like, yes, the war in Gaza is not good. Genocide is not good. Violence is not good. Where we experience sympathy, because, and the thing is, again, Charlie Kirk has been quoted as saying, I don't believe in
I don't
empathy. I
believe in
think it's a new age
empathy.
term. But what he goes on to say is, I much prefer
I believe
sympathy and
in
compassion, because we can't actually claim to feel what someone else is feeling. Because ultimately, and that example I think shines very clearly, is I go to Charlie Kirk's mother being like, oh my God, she's never going to hold her son again. And you go to his wife, you know, thinking, oh my God,
I
how
didn't
would
think
I
about
tell
his
my
mother
daughters?
once.
Yeah, how would I
I
go to
didn't
his
think
daughters?
about his mother once.
And that's the empathy piece of like, we're going to feel what's close to our humanness, because that's
Exactly.
our psychology, that's what we're orienting
Exactly.
to. But it's not to say that we can't feel sympathy or empathy for people who think or feel or look differently than who we are. It's to acknowledge that our nervous systems can only hold so much. And I think at this point, why I really wanted to highlight that there's compiled grief going on in the world right now, because there are several wars in the Congo, in Ukraine, in Gaza, like all over the place, not including the
In the
spiritual
Congo.
fucking warfare, you know, like, and not including our own personal stuff, is we can experience nervous system exhaustion, adrenal fatigue. We can't hold and feel sympathy and empathy for every single person all the time, because it's going to exhaust us. And our psychology, our minds are really intelligent in the ways in which we can feel for someone else and how much time we can feel for someone else. You know, I remember right when Floyd passed away, I had different people saying, oh, how are you navigating the waves of grief? And I said, what waves? What are you talking about?
Right.
I'm drowning over here. Like, there's no waves. It's just
Right.
underwater pressure.
Uh-huh.
Now, being a year and a half later, I'm like, ah, yes, there's waves. I can feel the waves coming and going, and I'm able to laugh again. I'm able to do different things again. But there are active waves, and this is what my psychology, what my nervous system is doing to support me, where yes, I can again titrate, I can feel the depth of the grief, and I can come out of it and resource myself, and then I can go back into it, and then I can come out of it. But I don't think we should be apologizing for our primal reactions to seeing a man get shot or a girl get stabbed, or, you know, various things. And I know Charlie Kirk, seeing him get shot, I do have trauma in relation to gun violence. And that brought up very visceral responses of like, Oh, I remember, like my body remembered before my brain did. You know, it took my brain, took my memories a while to catch up to that, actually. It took about a week to be like, oh my God, I remember these experiences. Oh my God. But my body remembered, immediately remembered. My digestive system shut down. I wasn't eating as much. And that's not something to apologize.
And that's the biggest piece is like to feel like we need to apologize, like the amount of shaming each other that is currently going on,
Hmm.
right? Like,
On either end, I would
and
say,
right.
you
And
know,
like
because
it's like
even like
it's
I carry judgment to people that were celebrating his death and those
that's what I
reactions,
was just gonna say. I was
you
just gonna say
know?
I'm not above judgment.
No, and the thing is, when I really come down to it, is like when we witness something big and grief reveals itself, grief is not, and I will stand on this hill. I mean, change my mind, sure. But like grief is not just an emotion. It's not just sadness or sorrow or anger. There is celebration, there is joy, there is laughter. Grief is not one size fits all, a one isolated thing. There's so many layers to it, and celebration can be an expression of grief. Absolutely. I think there's a line of
Yeah, but in
sharing.
this situation, celebration would be celebrating that so many people have come to God in the wake of it. You know, celebrating the
Right.
actual act of his death, I wouldn't say as somebody that's grieving. I would say that type of celebration
Yeah.
is outside of the realm of grief. I would say
I
that
mean,
that is
the way that
I would say that
the way I would say it's related to grief is that there is likely unintegrated grief being processed in the body of like, and again, rooted in these beliefs of like, he stood for things that I feel are unresolved, that I'm upset with, and that's triggering these big
that I see.
emotional experiences. And I
Right. So
think there's
they're
space for
celebrating
all
their
of
own
it.
grief that's separate from the death. Like it's like let's say
Kind of, yeah.
a black person is in the grief of the experience of being a black person in a white centric American country and all of the nuances of that. They perceive Charlie Kirk as hating black people, which there's a lot of evidence on the contrary. But
Hmm.
if that's the perception, then the celebration of his death could be connected to their grief of I'm oppressed as a black person and we need to eliminate it's something to celebrate if we're eliminating an obstacle that was perpetuating my oppression.
Right. Or he was supporting Israel, and the perception is that Israel is evil and not good, and we need to support Palestine. And if
Well, he
he's
was
supporting,
supporting Palestine until the very end. That's a nuance that I'm not sure many people know.
and
So,
yeah, I don't know enough to speak of it, but I'm just using that as an example of like
right.
these experiences when we have a really big reaction to something, anytime, whether it's good or bad, which is the labels we put on it, whenever we have a big reaction, that's something to look at inside, right? There's that story. So there's the example of the orange, which I love, but there's also the story of the man carrying coffee, right? This monk is telling a story of like a man's
I don't
walking down
know.
the street carrying coffee in a mug, and the man that's carrying this cup gets bumped into, and the man ends up spilling the coffee. And the monk says, "Why did you spill the coffee?" And the man says, "Well, because I was bumped into." And he says, "No, because you had coffee in your cup." And so the invitation here is each morning, each day, each opportunity that we can look at what's inside the cup. If there was wine in the cup, you would have spilled the wine. If there was water, you would have spilled water. If there was nothing, you would have spilled nothing. Right? The same goes for this orange example, where when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice.
Orange juice.
No matter how hard you squeeze that orange,
It's not going to be apple juice.
it's not going to be apple juice because it's orange juice that is inside. So when you are squeezed, when there is trauma or pressure or stress that is applied to you, whatever comes out, be it compassion or love or hatred or anger, is what is already inside, right? And I remember the first time I heard that was from Wayne Dyer. Bless that man. I love so much of what he wrote. I love his work. Um, but that's a really big piece, and that's been a really massive part of my path. is that self-reflection of when I'm having a reaction, giving space for that reaction to exist, because rage isn't bad. Anger's not bad. Sadness isn't bad. All of these things aren't wrong, but they have information. They're telling me, hey, there's something inside of you right now. What's coming out in you? Is it judgment? Is it shame? What is it? What's coming out in you right now? And that's the invitation that I would really love to bring forward, is when we see these things on these devices, what is it that comes out as we watch that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to contemplate already there, and to bring it back, to even contemplate the devices in and of themselves. Like, I feel like I need to be giving myself more permission to set it down, to put it down, to put it away. And yeah, I pray for more people to do that,
Mm-hmm.
It's such a beautiful thing to be connected and to be able to be in connection with people from all over the world. And I mean, outside of being able to be exposed to the political content of the whole world or the events of the whole world, like I have friends all over the whole world that
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful to be able to stay in contact with because of these devices. And like the reality is I experience myself to be quite a grounded person most of the time, and I have felt quite dysregulated in the wake of the world. I mean, probably building since COVID. And I do think that there is an invitation to contemplate like the why behind the moves of the big players, why we're being exposed to certain things on social media, why there's so much polarity, why there's so much division, and like really ask ourselves, like, is the bigger picture right or wrong, or like, unfollowing that person that you disagree with, and like getting so deep into these rhetorics, or is the bigger picture the silencing, the division,
Well, this is
the
the connection
dysregulated
piece.
nervous systems?
Yeah, this is the connection piece that you were speaking to. Like our social media things and our phones, like they can provide us opportunities to connect. But if all of a sudden we're unfollowing somebody because they think differently than us, why, then it's not fostering connection, you know? And if there are videos that I see on social media that are flagged and blurred out because they're inappropriate for viewing, and it's a woman just giving birth, which is such a normal, human, beautiful thing to happen, that's not violent. And yet,
And
the
there's no
videos of
warning over an assassination. Exactly.
exactly when that can happen in an instantaneous moment. Why is it that the videos of Charlie Kirk circulated so quickly and I still don't see flags for this is inappropriate for viewership? But I see that
I mean,
with every
even with
single birth video.
Palestine, like
Yep.
I was following journalists on the ground, and like I had to stop. Like I had the pure intention of I want to expose myself to the truth of what's happening, but there were multiple times where I opened my phone to like mangled children without a censorship, and I was just like, I can't. Like I do not have the capacity to integrate that in the 5 minutes that I just opened my phone between making my kids breakfast and trying to get them ready to get out the door. And like, now I'm trying to, like, we're
Well,
not designed. Like, like I'm
no.
getting red. Like, it's like, I feel like angry that that's even a thing that's happening. We have to
Yeah.
ask why.
Yeah.
Why are they wanting us to see those things, right? Because the other thing it does, it creates anger, it creates division, but it also creates disassociation and it creates numbness. Enough exposure to
That's
things like that,
the
and the
numbness
nervous
piece.
system has to shut down. It has to, period. And so now they're creating a society where there's more numbness around severe violence, where people are responding less to these extreme things.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And
And so
so,
yeah, I want to contemplate these bigger pieces, right? And like, it's like, can we look beyond just the stories that we feel passionately about, that we have opinions on, and that's fine, that's human. But can we take a breath and look beyond that,
mhm.
you know?
And so some things that I really want to bring into this conversation that I feel are just important are ways that we can support our nervous systems, because sometimes we open our phones and let's say a friend sends you a video, you don't know what it is, you look at it and it's Charlie Kirk, or it's something to do with Palestine, or it's something to do with whatever's going on. It can take us out of our bodies. It can really like fling our nervous systems into a big reaction state. There's so many things that can happen there. And I'm not saying to not go on social media or not stay aware of what's happening in the news. I don't have an answer as to what is correct or incorrect when it comes to, yeah, how much we should be aware of what's going on in the world. However, there are some herbs that I would recommend. Holy basil, really, really supportive. Skullcap, and again, talk to your like healthcare providers, not just your doctors, but people that know plants, that know you, and know what else you're taking. Magnesium, really supportive for evening, for your nervous system. Make sure you're eating enough fats so that the myelin sheath around your nerves are able to process all the information coming forward. 5-HTP, really, really good. I've taken it the last couple days and I'm already noticing I exhale longer. My inhales are more full. Like there's all of these little things that we can do. Um, Chamomile, really, really supportive. Even peppermint, like let's not push away those everyday herbs that are also really, really helpful.
Right.
Um,
Valerian.
Valerian, vitamin D, vitamin C, St. John's wort, if you're not on SSRIs or other antidepressant medication,
Or birth
um,
control.
or birth control, or if you're pregnant. And again, like double check with all of these. If you're experiencing a lot of, if you're wanting to tap into more grief, the essential oil marjoram, diffusing that, really supportive. Drinking motherwort tea, really supportive. But if you're feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated, ashwagandha, reishi are really powerful adaptogens, as well as chaga, really supportive. Psilocybin microdoses have also been shown to be really supportive. Cacao can be really supportive. Rose.
Cacao, be careful with. Cacao is quite an
Yeah.
agitator for me. It'll be more
Yeah.
of a heart opener. It could bring you more into the process, but
Yeah.
yeah, rose for sure.
Yeah. Rose for
Jasmine.
sure.
Rescue
Jasmine,
Remedy is a great one.
rescue remedy. Arnica. Yeah.
Ignatia is really good. It's a homeopathic. Ignatia
Mhm.
is a good one for acute grief. And so if you're just finding like the ways of the world to be quite agitating in an acute space, then you can use that to kind of help to process in a more digestible way. If you want to go really into your grief, you can use nat muricum.
Yeah. Yeah. Staying hydrated, adding a little
Touching the
bit of
earth.
salt, touching the earth. Also
Meditation, yoga.
containment muscles. So if you are going through a process and then you're feeling kind of complete with it, the but just squeezing a little bit the outside of your arms and the outside of your abdomen and your legs, touching your feet, really like a subtle thing to do, but really supportive, just to bring you back into the body. It allows your nervous system to feel held. Prayer, underrated, really, really powerful, really supportive
Tapping your
thing.
glands is a really good one to help
Yeah,
balance your hormones. You have your
tapping. Yeah,
pineal, pituitary, thyroid,
yeah.
thalamus. You can do your
Limiting
mammary glands,
limiting
your
caffeine if you can.
pancreas. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, which I mean, I just drank coffee,
I
so,
I
but
quit
you
coffee.
quit coffee. Um, yeah, I mean, there's many things that are really supportive. These are just some examples, but yeah, putting your feet on the earth, putting your phone down, eliminating screen times, turning your Wi-Fi off at night. Highly recommend. This is information that our bodies are constantly picking up, and to reduce the stimulation, really helpful. Really, really helpful.
Reducing intake of processed foods, and
Yeah.
honestly, probably one of the best things that you can do
Hmm.
is move your body. Move
Hmm.
your body. Move the
Yeah.
energy, get it out. Like there is lift weights, run, like
Laugh,
maybe a yeah,
even
totally.
laughter, like it does move, right? Like you're
Yeah,
laughing and you're
totally.
you're shaking, doing anything, rebounding for your nervous system,
Yeah.
dry brushing, taking a shower. There's something about like
Oh
taking a
my God,
shower,
yes.
bath, going in the ocean, the lake, going for a steam or a sauna, bringing in that element of water, really, really, really important for the nervous
Make
system.
love, have an orgasm,
Yeah, yeah,
or
absolutely.
three.
Or three or more.
Yeah.
Wear something beautiful. Like there's something to be said about what is it called? Dopamine dressing. When like you're
Taking care
putting
of
on an
yourself, right?
outfit that just feels good and you're like, oh wow, when I look at this, I like it. It's pretty. It has a nice pattern on it or whatever. Like there are so many things that we can do. I know for me in the early stages of Floyd, I could not tap into gratitude, but I was able to tap into reverence. And for me, the difference is gratitude is like an active, like thankful quality, whereas reverence, I had one sister define it like this. She took her hand and put it on the earth and just said, that's reverence. And it's this honoring of what is, the totality, the wholeness of what is. And so for me, doing my best to come back to reverence has been really supportive to my nervous system.
Honestly, and this is going to be a bias and it's for those who are the ears that are ready to hear, but for me, the biggest thing is seek God. And I don't care what path you take, what that
Mhm.
looks like, what that means to you, but that's where I find the most peace and comfort.
Can you define God in this moment as like saying seek God? Can you define what it is that you're seeking?
A conversation with something bigger than you, connecting to the unexplainable, the mystery, the source, the creation of it all. I can't remember. Mike and I were just in an airport, I think, and I was like, God, can you imagine like having to like manage all of this and put all these pieces together so that it like flows in the airplanes and blah blah blah. And he's like, can you imagine creating everything? That unimaginable power that you can find inside of yourself, inside of your heart. God for me is the ultimate expression of love, the ultimate expression of forgiveness, the ultimate expression of compassion, the ultimate expression of truth, the ultimate expression of peace.
Yeah. And if you have any other ideas of what would be supportive for the nervous system, things that we didn't mention, things that we did that you're like, yeah, I love this, you can write that in the comments, share anything else.
Body work, craniosacral massage, chiropractic.
A good long hug. Yeah. 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 Making up, you know what's fun though? Making up a handshake with a friend, playing a board game.
We
That's
love board
really,
games.
we love the board
Yeah.
games, love that. Dancing, creating a playlist. Oh my God, my earring is coming out of my face. There we go. Um, Playing games, painting, being creative. If there is something on your heart, like something that I love to do is creating a self-portrait of that thing, you know, creating a self-portrait of your stress, of your angst, of your grief, of your sorrow, of whatever's going on in the world, like painting it. Like art is such a powerful way to what is it when people, I don't know why I'm losing my
Express,
word here.
ground,
No, uh, when you're
process,
protesting stuff,
integrate.
when you're protesting something
Uh-huh.
and there's, oh, I don't know. Anyway, it's a powerful act of revolution, right? Like
Uh-huh.
in a protest, in a time of turmoil, in a time of uprise and upheaval, when there's many things going on, many changes happening, there's different roles. Some people show up in political climates, some people are teachers and they take care of the kids, some people are artists, some people, like we all have a different role in the evolution of humanity. It's not always going to be taking a microphone and speaking and sharing our thoughts. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's painting something. Sometimes it's helping the woman cross the street with her groceries. Like it's not always a big spectacle thing. Sometimes it's tending to your nervous system. Sometimes it's hugging your kids a little bit longer, you know?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we hope that some of those things really were supportive. And, just to close this conversation and with the invitation to be in dialogue about some of this, content
Mhm.
and about some of these really big things, I actually feel called to end on a bit of a boundary. And that would be that I am so open for dialogue and discourse, but I'm not open for hate and to be called names
Mhm.
and to be shamed and to be, I'm not really looking to interface with people that don't have enough filter to be in a mature conversation and in a mature dialogue and discourse. And so really, if you're in a trigger, I really send out the invitation to pause and to take a deep breath and to
Mhm.
share your point and your perspective in a way that there's space for conversation, because I pray so deeply for conversation, but I have boundaries and I will
Yeah.
protect my energy
Yeah.
as well.
I
Also.
Yeah, I agree. I echo that. I think, yeah, we're both so open to these dialogues, to these discussions, and of course, this is Birth the Middle Way. This is a space to dialogue about birth, and I do want to tether this back to the foundation of what we're here to do, which is make space for people who think differently than us to come together and discuss without making someone or something wrong, but being rooted in truth, right? Whether it's
Right.
bridging the gap in free birth and hospital birth settings or in discussions in politics, which does impact and influence birth. And if we, the way we do one thing is how we do everything. And we've spoken into that semantic a little bit in previous episodes, I think. Um, and the way that we talk about birth, I think, echoes the way we talk about politics. And I am not here, and I know Sam isn't here to be cruel or hateful. We are here to come together in love and to discuss, yeah, from a heart centered space. I don't know if we ever got into the topic on what hate speech is and how do we actually qualify it or quantify it. But
I think that you were correct that it's a subjective thing, right?
right, right.
It's bias. There's bias at the root of it for sure.
Yeah. And so, I mean, neither of us, I think, want to contribute to anything hateful. And we want to be rooted in truth. And we want to be in dialogue, respectful, compassionate dialogue, grounded dialogue. And so, with that said, I want to offer some gratitude. Thank you for being here, for listening, um, for taking care of yourself. That is a radical, beautiful thing to do, is to honor your nervous system, to put your phone down when you need to. Yeah, and I just want to send love to every single human being on this planet. There's so much going on, and I just wish and pray that we can all experience a big, beautiful exhale, peace, and the remembrance of coming back to our humanity. I pray that we can see the humanity in each and every person, that we can pray good things for each and every person, and that ultimately we can come together in this revolution of whatever is going on the planet and come back to growing food and being in community and sharing in all the complexities of what it means to be human. Thank you.
Oh, navigating the chaos together.